kind of in this lull, not really going anywhere, just kind of taking, hi Blanche!
I'm like, she's done.
And then I started going to the gym and going to these classes and just being surrounded by this energy that is kind of hard to really describe once you're in that spot. And I would be in the back row and slowly started making my way to the front. And then, you know, a new instructor came in and I'm like, I can do this, you know, and you start seeing signs for instructor trainings. And then I got connected with Mindy, and I just wanted to be around that energy, and I wanted it to consume me. And so as soon as she said, you want to be a part of this, I'm like, duh. And I didn't really know what I was getting into. I wasn't familiar with Beachbody. I had no clue. You know, Shakeology had just come out, I think, the month that I joined. We were living paycheck to paycheck. And I think I even told her that I'm going to have to wait 2 weeks before I sign up just because we don't have $40. And so I did that. And then I think in the beginning there wasn't really any training. There was no super Sundays, super Saturdays, nothing like that. No group meetings. We were just trying to figure out how to come together as a team, and I just did everything she told me to do, and consistent action, you know, over time, it really does compound. And I'm not a superstar diamond coach. I'm not a 5-star diamond coach, but financially I make just as much as some of those guys just because those consistent actions, and I haven't really put a lot of emphasis on rank advancement. So the volume's great, but the rank is not there. And so if you are a coach already and you're thinking, oh, I've got to get to 2-star and I've got to get to 5-star, just don't lose sight of the focus of the relationships of the people who have already joined you, and taking that time to be there for them, even if building the business isn't what they want to do, because they might just be in it for the discount now and just want to be a part of that energy of your team. And that's all they want right now. And a year later, they might come around and say, okay, I want to do this. I'm serious. I can see that I can do what you're doing. And then they start. And that's what's happened to me is I just have these coaches every now and then that pick up. And I was that coach. I remember calling Mindy saying, I don't know if I'm going to do this anymore. And she just said, okay, and she was completely supportive. I could hear the disappointment, but she was completely supportive, and she was still there for me that whole year that I put Beachbody on the back burner. It was 2011, and she waited, you know, and she was still there. She was one of my biggest cheerleaders. And then I went through a year where I worked at a gym in a management position, and it was not a fun job being in that environment because the energy was very draining, and working for a company that was just focused on the dollar, it was really hard coming from this, where it was like, you can do it, you can do whatever you want, what are your goals, to, I don't care what you have to do, you're going to sign people up, and it doesn't matter whether you're cheating them or not. And just being around that for a solid year, it was clear to me that I have to get out of this and come back to where I'm supported and fed, and it's like plugging into an outlet. You know, you go out there into the real world and it's draining. You go on your news feed and it's draining, but then I can go plug into my team page and it's like this safe, supportive place. And even if you're not working the business, I mean, it was still my safe place. And so a lot of those coaches fell off over that year, but whenever I came back, a lot of them had stayed. And because I was consistently still using Shakeology that year that I took off, I took the year off not working the business, tracking who I was talking to, getting on team calls, coming to live events. That's how I took off. But I was still a part of those people's lives, and I was still drinking Shakeology, so I was still getting results. I never stopped working out. So I would just say, I mean, yeah, it's been a huge life change financially, but it took that consistent just plugging in consistently. And if you want to grow it to be a superstar diamond or whatever, it really comes down to the hard work of building those relationships and tracking. Tracking. That's the hardest part, because I heard it very early on from Larry Zimberg that the fortune is in the follow-up. And I've let so many people fall through the cracks simply by not going back through and checking messages or using a tracking sheet and writing down. Or really the best thing that works for me is plugging into a team training challenge, some kind of like the push to success or the leadership effect. Those groups, even though it's the same kind of information that you hear all the time, it's the accountability that's really helped push me. So financially, right now with Beachbody, I'll tell you that we average about $1,500 to $2,000 a week, and I'm a 1-star. And my husband's also a 1-star, but his business is more kind of, I would say, equal to like what a diamond rank business would be. And the only reason why there's such a drastic difference between both of our 1-star businesses is because of the volume and the way that I've structured my team. So I would just say, make sure that you connect with your upline anytime that I get coaches. I had a coach last week, like, okay, I know how much cycles I need to make this amount each week, my goal. How many coaches do I need to be signing up? How many? And I'm like, it's not really the amount of, I would say 2 to 3 a month if you want a number, but you could find a diamond in the rough who comes in and transforms your whole business. So it's really a person to person thing. And like, okay, I signed this coach and I placed them over here, so where do I need to place my next coach? Well, it really depends on who that person is. Yeah. So you can't put too much thought into what I'm going to do because it's those relationships and each person is different. So just take it one person at a time and just give without expecting anything. You guys know all of this, but you just have to consistently train yourself and hear it and practice it. Because of Beachbody, I was allowed to quit that job that was draining me, pay off a lot of debt, have a few things altered. You know, I lost 60 pounds and I've had 3 kids, so things kind of
shifted and
I couldn't live things naturally. So, you know, and braces, I mean, my teeth weren't terrible, but it was a thing for me that was like this. Getting up here speaking, there was no smiling involved just because I was ashamed of how my teeth looked. And so I was able to pay that with my money because my husband's paying the bills and I don't want to, you know, like we have 3 kids that we're going to have to put braces on. So I was able to I started by taking the grocery bill. I started paying the groceries, you know, and then it was like, okay, I can take the water bill and now I'll take the gas bill. And then it was like, you know, let's get rid of this car and I can take over my car payment now. And then this last year, I actually started making more than my husband each month. So it's just this crazy, I would have in a never million years thought it would be like this. And I'm not doing anything differently than any of you guys are doing, running groups, participating in groups, talking to people, coming to these events, getting on calls. If you miss a call, following up and make sure you listen to it. It's the same thing. It's just, I've been in it longer. That's it. So don't quit. If you're brand new, be here in a year because we do these every single quarter. So are you going to be at Summit? I know it was really hard for me to go the first time that I ever went. Traveling wasn't something that we did a lot of. And so buying a plane ticket and like getting a room, like it was really scary. But once I went that first time, it became a no matter what, I will never miss another year. And even the year I took off, I went.
Yeah, you did.
And it was kind of like a wake up, like, you know, being around that many coaches, it was like a huge wake-up call. This is where I'm supposed to be. And there's a ton of different companies out there and organizations that I'm sure are great. But it was just the fitness and the lifestyle that I was already kind of finding my way. And then it was just this connection. And if you find someone who doesn't know what Beachbody is, like usually the first thing I'm like, go look up Carl Deichler. Go watch some Carl Deichler videos because if you can connect with the mission from the CEO and you get what you see with him, it's not this, you know, like, oh, I'm Carl Deichler, the CEO, I'm this cool guy, and then you meet him and he's some jerk. Like what you see is what you get. And so I really hope that all of you will, if you've already decided not to go, I really encourage you to reconsider going on Sunday because he doesn't come every single time and Autumn's going to be there. So I think this is the first time I'll actually have guests at a super. I've been a coach for 5 years.
You've had some guests before. I have pictures.
Oh yeah, proof.
Tell them about your weight loss real fast, and then
weight
you're
loss,
good, and then you got to
started working out, taking classes. Again, the girl scared in the back row, but just stuck with it and lost 50 pounds, and then became an instructor and lost an additional 10. So 60 pounds.
You've done a lot lately too.
Yes. opened a fitness studio, which
Hi.
again would not have happened
That's
without
your little
Beachbody. We're in our 6th month, so it's really like scary time. But if it weren't for Beachbody, every single week I'm like, thank you, Beachbody, thank you, Beachbody. But now we have a space to have events like this.
Right.
I can do what I learned not to do in that position, you know what I mean? And that was a big thing too. You look at something, you're like, okay, if they can do it and be successful,
And
the same thing in the business,
Right.
if they can do it and be successful, so can you. You know, and it's the same thing with the gym situation. It was like, there's nothing else like this in our area. It's obviously needed, so it might be hard, but it's totally doable. And because of what I make with Beachbody, it hasn't put too much of a strain on our family. And I have that money to put into the business just to reach more people in my community and kind of help them make that connection from being the girl in the back row or someone who's even scared to walk into the door to come in and feel that sense of inclusive welcoming with a group of women, which we all know how it is.
Which is weird, right?
Yeah,
Totally.
like how many people have been burned by some snotty,
I don't like girls.
you know, girl or in the gym, like just. I remember when I first started going to classes, nobody would really talk to each other. Like, it was just this big group, and then slowly, like, we all went to the same classes, and then it wasn't until I started teaching that we kind of became friends. So, just go out with intent on helping people, giving and serving, and follow the example that we have an amazing example. And I know there's a ton of coaches who don't have upline support, so we're very lucky in that sense. And I'm just thankful.
Okay,
Again, for-
smile and look at the camera.